We now know why Trump didn't release the Epstein files himself. Today, we're talking about Trump's big, flashy new Epstein File Transparency Act, which requires the administration to release the Epstein files. It passed Congress 427-1. Trump signed it, took a victory lap somehow, even though he's implicated in the files. And he makes it seem like he's going to dump every unclassified file and it's going to get all out there and it's going to be all exposed. But here's the catch. This law has more escape hatches than any other statute we've seen. And it basically gives Trump cover to be able to withhold kind of whatever he wants. And we're going to talk about all the little loopholes there are in there and what Trump is probably going to exploit. And the point is, he couldn't have done this if he had just released the files, ordered the release of the files himself. He needed a statute like this to give him cover to selectively withhold stuff that hurts him or implicates him. So that's what we're diving into today. I'm Sean Kernick, that's Brian Kabatek. This is another installment of Civil Action on the Legal AF Network. Just a reminder before we dive in, if you're enjoying the content on Legal AF, hit that subscribe button. We're getting close to 1 million followers. We really appreciate the support. We've seen this grow massively since we first started, and we really appreciate the support. We hope you find it useful and interesting. Brian, where do we start with this issue? The Trump Epstein loopholes, huh?
Well, it looked like what was going to happen. If you go back a few days, it looks like it was pretty obvious that this was going to pass. It was going to put people in an uncomfortable position in the Republican Party if they had to vote against it. There was word at least 100 people were going to vote for it, for the release. Trump sees this. So it looks to me like what happened is they concocted a scheme, a plan, a conspiracy, whatever you want to call it. And, I'm not much of a conspiracy guy, but every now and then it does happen. And this looks like exactly what had happened. And you just said it correctly, Sean, that if Trump had just released the documents and then he started to withhold documents, people would be looking at him. Now they created this mechanism, and we're going to get into details in 1 second here, but they've created this mechanism where Trump can sit there and say, my hands are tied. They're following the law. The law says certain things. And so I think this is a very cute way to push and to kick the ball down the road. I mean, I still think chickens are going to come home to roost, and it's just a matter of time. But I think this is a very clever way. So let's sort of get into it, Sean.
Yeah. So what it requires is, full transparency on its face. I think they have to be searchable and downloadable. They have to be out by December 19th. So next month, that's right around the corner here. And the DOJ has said they're going to be transparent while trying to protect victims, et cetera, et cetera. But let's talk about what the actual fine print says. And we can go through some. I
think there are two things here, Sean, that make sense. There's a number of them. I think I count 7 or 8, but there's 2 of them that make sense. One is the names of victims, and the other is graphic or illegal content. So child sex abuse, anything like that, pictures, photographs, those make sense. Now, having said that, there would be nothing wrong with the victim coming forward and saying, nope, don't redact my name, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think there would be nothing wrong, but maybe Trump will try to even exploit that, sort of adding insult to injury when it comes to these victims and their rights and choices. They make a choice, an informed choice to let their name be released as part of it. I think that's their informed choice. And, in a way that I think victims see this as a way to shed light on what they've been through and make it okay for others to come forward. So Trump will inevitably abuse that loophole. But I think a big one here, a big loophole, is that they can withhold anything tied to ongoing or dormant investigations that haven't been closed. So this, I think, is a huge problem, possibly the biggest loophole. I don't know if you think it's the biggest one, but the DOJ can basically claim, ongoing review indefinitely, ongoing investigation, ongoing review. This is especially relevant, and Trump's really going to like this tool because he's going to tell them to start reopening probes.
Well, he already did. I mean, if going back to this, if you start to connect the dots, he starts coming out, we need to go after these Democrats. We need to go after Clinton. We need to go after Larry Summers, who's come forward and admitted that, he was part of this in some capacity, I guess. So he starts with that. Then he comes out with, I'm going to support this. And then this language ends up in the bill about what can be left out. And the exact language, Sean, is would jeopardize an active federal investigation or ongoing prosecution can only be withheld if the redaction is narrowly tailored and temporary. The department has to justify withholdings within 15 days. But all they have to say is we have an open, active investigation into a number of individuals, and these documents have to be withheld.
Ongoing investigation. That's all they have to say. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so now we know that it was really the Democratic Party that was supporting Jeffrey Epstein, and that people like Donald Trump had nothing to do with it whatsoever. I think we're all much more comfortable now with that revelation of information, right, Sean?
Yeah. Yeah. So now that's going to be the new spin on it, right? This is all Democrats, and they're implicated in this. So he's going to exploit this loophole.
Look, even the Republican that was sort of the moving force behind this, Representative Massey from Kentucky, he's even pointed out that this smacks of a safe harbor that they're going to drive their little ship into.
Yep, it's you could drive a truck through this loophole, and that's what Trump's going to do. Other things that can be withheld are classified materials. It's obvious, but it's kind of broad. So any intelligence references to foreign nationals that are persons of interest. Well, and
don't let's not discount this one that quickly, because we do know that J.P. Morgan has filed all those suspicious activity reports. We talked about that before, about foreign transactions with foreign governments, foreign transactions outside the United States, Belarus, places like that. They may use that as an excuse, Sean.
Yeah. And what worries me is, yes, this makes sense, right? If it implicates matters of national security, international affairs, intelligence references, I agree. Some of this stuff needs to be kept under wraps. But with the Trump administration, this might be hard to believe, but I can't trust them. I'm not comfortable trusting them.
Why?
To use a proper judgment when, setting something aside as classified or something as sensitive. I feel like they're going to take this and go, okay, well, so many of these things are sensitive, especially if it harms Trump or the MAGA interest, the MAGA movement. So it's a problem.
Then there's an exception for grand jury transcripts. We know that already, although there could be exceptions to that. But then I think the last one that has some, at least in my mind, has some fear that it'll end up becoming another safe harbor for him, is that the White House can assert executive privilege over certain communications. Now, we know that this president believes that the executive privilege, the office of presidency, covers him for acts that occurred before he was president.
Decades before, sure. Yeah.
Well, decades before, such as those that came out in the prosecution in New York, or the case of E. Jean Carroll.
Yeah, sexual assault was conduct. I guess
conduct that occurred after he was president, before he became president the second time.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. So there's a lot of holes here, and I wouldn't be surprised if he tries to exploit them. Yeah,
that's right, Sean. And I think we're going to stay tuned, because mark my words, I bet we're going to be back here in a week or 10 days. Well, at least after the 19th of December, saying it's shocking how many documents have still not been turned over. But, this, I think, is part of the Trump playbook. Kick it down the road, throw up a shiny ball of something else. Like at the same time this was all going down, the Trump administration suddenly releases the records, the confidential records involving Amelia Earhart. And for those of you that don't know, Amelia Earhart was a female pilot, very famous at the time, except that time was in the early 1930s, who disappeared.
I mean, it's a very timely issue. No?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just as timely as Epstein and all these other things. Yeah. No, but we'll see what happens. Stay tuned here. We're going to find out in the coming weeks how they're going to do this. My expectation is we're going to get like little drips and drabs of stuff, and you're going to have like these curated groups of documents that they've carefully culled through. They're probably panicking right now, and they're making sure to kind of have this whole document review system in place, rather than a document dump of everything where the public and interested parties can sort through them and look through them.
And they're going to kick this, Sean, right into the Christmas holidays when people are preoccupied with their families. People are preoccupied with the holidays, their travels, whatever. They're going to kick it right into that time frame.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens. Stay tuned, and we'll keep you posted on what's going to happen over the next few weeks on more civil action on the Legal AF network. I'm Sean Kernigan. That's Brian Kabatek over there. Remember, if you like this content, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, share with us your feedback. A lot of these ideas for things to cover are now starting to come from you guys. So it's kind of crowdsourced, and it's really cool to be able to interact with you all. We appreciate the feedback. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.